If there's one thing Shannon Sharpe is great at doing, he's great at doing interviews and getting them to go viral. And this interview with Kel Mitchell definitely went viral. And the stuff that he was saying about his ex-wife, whew.
Ended up marrying my ex-wife, because we had another baby. We had the baby, mm-hmm. right? We had the abortion, but then we had a baby. Mm-hmm. And she ended up telling me that the baby that was aborted wasn't mine. And so within that process, you are immediately married within a lie already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So the marriage was never the same after that, was it?
No, it was. This is at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? This is right at the beginning. And
so, Kel, who is this person that was pregnant? Because it was not me. Like, who was this? And then other thing is, like, how do you remember all these pregnancies, but you don't remember your kids for, like, years? Like, I don't even know, 13, I don't know, 14. And then how do you remember all these pregnancies, but you don't remember Nick, in my cheerleading outfit, right? Like, how does your memory work exactly? Because you remember lots of things about me from a long time ago, and it's kind of odd, like, how your memory works. Like, you don't remember, I don't know, do you remember your daughter in a car accident? Do you remember your son losing his tooth? Do you remember taking your kids' money? Do you remember being completely physically, mentally abusive? Do you remember that you used to beat me and hit me and choke me and strangle me when I would come out the hospital because I have sickle beta thalassemia disease? Do you remember that? Do you remember that you were addicted to sex? Do you remember that? Do you remember me catching you with a man? Do you remember that? Do you remember you using the money that I created to pay for an entire woman's place? Do you remember that? Do you remember taking the kids to Chicago and not telling me? Do you remember unilaterally filing for divorce and then moving back in with your mistress? Do you remember that? It's just, your memory is so strange. Like, do you remember that you didn't have any money for 5 years and the studio told you that, basically told everybody that you were dead, and so I had to write a pilot for you? Do you remember that I wanted to be a mathematician, but instead I decided to be in a rap group with you? Do you remember that? Do you remember that when no one else was talking about you, I produced and wrote Kel Videos Live? Do you remember? Do you remember I also wrote and produced Ganked? Do you remember that? Do you remember that movie that you did with Cedric the Entertainer? The one that I gave you? Do you remember that you took that and you sold it for $2,500? Do you remember that? Because your memory is so interesting to me, because I don't know why you didn't remember that I don't even like bodily fluids. So that I was actually relieved to find out when you were cheating. When I found out you were cheating, I was relieved. Did you remember that? Do you remember that I lost my virginity to you? Do you remember that? Your memory is interesting. So I think we should, let's figure out, let's sit down. Let's have a sit down and let's think about, this memory. I have a few items that might, jog your mind to help you with some of that memory. I don't know if this is like, beginning Alzheimer's or something, but yeah, let's talk.
Now, if you guys remember a few years ago, Tyisha had came out and was talking about how Kel Mitchell owed her $3 million in child support and a whole list of other things. And even that moment when she said Nick Cannon was in a cheerleading outfit performing for Kel. Remember that whole situation? Yeah, she even talks about that too again. But anyway, Kel really put his ex-wife on blast. Taisha was going to clap back, and she definitely did. Rest of Tessa, how she had Who the F Did I Marry? Well, she's doing her own series on Kel Mitchell. Let's go ahead and take a look at it.
I swear, every time he speaks, I'm just like, what? What? What is happening? Oh my gosh. So, you know what? I think I'm going to be like Tori Hart. I'm going to go ahead and start my comedy, because if it were not my life, it's actually funny now. When I was going through it, it wasn't funny, but it's funny now because I just think to myself and like, this is probably why you don't get married at 18. This is probably why, it's not the best thing. But one thing about Kel that's so hilarious to me is that, his math. So, first things first, Kel was 18 years old when we were married and when our son was born. So we were married and our son was born and Kel was 18 years old. So, and all of a sudden now, Kel seems to remember about how tragic it was for me in the hospital and how tragic every single pregnancy was because I almost died every single pregnancy. So it was a very traumatic time. But for so many years, that slipped Kel's memory. And I know he may think that the rest of the world or, other people think like how he thinks, but, I just want to be as realistic as I possibly can. So, the very first time that we had sex, under, I think it was 17, okay? And, pregnant shortly after, okay? And had the baby shortly after, okay? And this was really shortly after Nick was in my cheerleading uniform on my bed. And I know that's crazy, right? I know that's like, you know what? I have realized that I have, I don't know, Asperger's, autism, I don't know, but I know that nowadays people would think like, oh man, a guy's, and his girlfriend's cheerleading outfit, people would think like, why would you want to marry that guy, right? Why would you want to marry that guy? Because, he might be, I don't know, with the rainbows. I love rainbows, by the way. But, I'm saying he might like them more than me. Who knows, So anywho, so no, but that's not actually what I thought about. I just thought about the fact that Nick and his little balls were in my cheerleading outfit, and I was just thinking about how I was going to clean it. Could it be sanitary? Is that possible? And has he done this before? And have I known? And just everything else went through my mind except for the fact that possibly they were in some sort of romantic relationship because he used to like me to wear the cheerleading outfit. So I wasn't thinking like, that could have been happening because he never told me that he was, bisexual. So anywho, that's, but anyway, so Kel's math isn't mathing. He is not talking about me. I am not the one that is pregnant. It's not even physically possible. The very first time that I had sex, I was impregnated with my son, who is here, and he's alive and well, and there could not have been an abortion in between any of that, because obviously that's not how it works, right? So we were 18 when our first child was born, so I don't know what he's talking about. And then 19, nobody was born. But that's why I'm saying that, I really do think that sometimes when people have mental issues and they have, I don't even know if it's a mental issue, really. I just think that Kel, is such a bitch that, he thinks that this is how like he stays famous, is to just act like a poor guy with my wife cheating on me. Like it makes the stuff that he did to myself and our children more tolerable because I'm such a terrible whore slutty woman who sleeps around. Like, what are you talking about? It's really interesting to me because he lies about stuff that's just ridiculous. Very, very ridiculous. And all of this abortions and all this stuff. And the reason why he says all of these things, I think, are because he's a narcissist. And I have done several videos about how narcissists abuse you at your weakest moments. And so one thing that I had to do, and I'm also a mathematician, so I'm always paying attention to patterns, and I had made a journal. In my journal, I realized that, oh my gosh, that Kel physically abuses me anytime I come out of the hospital because that's when I'm at my weakest. And so I think that what Kel is trying to do, he's trying to recreate the story to make there be a reason other than the fact that I'm really sick and I have a critical disease, and so I'm forced to go to the hospital a lot. And So he doesn't want anybody to feel sorry for me with all the medical records. So instead, he's trying to equate me going to the hospital with abortions, which is, unfortunately what these kinds of narcissists do. And the older that they get, obviously the better that they get, because I'm sure nobody would even think to put those two together. But I always would have to think about what Kel was thinking, because this is just what happens when you're in these kinds of relationships that are abusive, because you're constantly trying to figure out, like, how do they get to these crazy ideas in their head. And so you're constantly just trying to figure them out. I don't know. That was just me. I was constantly trying to figure this man out for the majority of our relationship. So, well, that's about the abortions. I guess I'll have to do some more videos. Everyone's waiting for a story time. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start with a story time. So, I was doing acting at the time that I met Kel. I actually met him on the set of Good Burger. I did not watch Kenan and Kel, and I think really that honestly played a lot into the reason why our marriage did not work. I mean, there were a lot of reasons why our marriage did not work out. But the main reason, I mean, one of the reasons I think is because don't ever get into a marriage with anybody who is insecure, right? So sometimes when you're with a guy who is, I don't know, insecure about themselves. So Kel is of the smaller statute. He's not an elf, but he's a little bit taller than an elf or a leprechaun. And so he always, had a little bit of insecurity about that. He didn't like his teeth. He didn't like his eyes. He had to wear these Coke bottle glasses. And he held a lot of that inside of him. Now, these are things that I did not know about him. But I will say that I thought I checked off all the boxes. I was super religious, did not have sex until I was married or planning to be married, which is why I decided to have sex with Kel. And I became pregnant the very first time we had sex, which I don't know why I didn't think was possible, but hey, I was 18. I just didn't think that's how that worked. But hey, very surprised when it did, because that is how it works. Anyway, so this man has gone on Shay, Clubshayshay, and is just on there lying. And I'm just like, I don't even know why he wants to talk about me at all. Like, I just wouldn't even mention my name if I were him, especially because he still owes me over $3 million. And it's like, dude, where's my money? And that's all I care about. But I don't know. I really don't know why he does this. I think maybe he's bored with his new family persona that he's in, because, narcissists, they like what they like, but they also like everything else, and they might not tell you exactly what they like. And that was also, very surprising for me as a young person, because I think, like, you get married, you just stay married for the rest of your life. So I figured that I had to accept Kel for who he was, because he was my husband. But along the way, I realized that there were just some things that I could not accept. And once I stopped accepting those things that he wanted me to accept, that's when the man got completely psycho and crazy, and this really began the narcissistic nightmare that I'm still like, I hope people are realizing that this is why this is still trauma, right? Because still, so many years ago, this man is lying about abortions. I mean, just the fact that you're even lying about abortions is crazy. That's like really crazy work. But then also to state that because of these fake abortions, or because of cheating, because of me cheating, this man said he wanted to kill himself. I mean, just think about how narcissistic that sounds, right? Another thing is, and I want to clarify this very much. In the interview, Kel is acting like, we did not want our son and it was a secret. It was not a secret. It was never a secret. We wanted our son. He's the one who wanted me to get pregnant with the son. we told everybody, both of our parents knew as soon as we found out that we were pregnant. And so there was no sneaking around. It was not a shock. Every single person knew, and he made it a point to make everybody know. And so like, that's even crazy to me, because when this was happening, as soon as I found out that I was pregnant, he was so excited, and his parents, everyone was so excited, and we were all excited. So this is so strange to me, this version of events that he somehow now has.
It's safe to say no love lost between the two. But one thing I want to point out is that both of them, they don't take accountability for nothing. Like Kel, during the interview with Shannon Sharpe, he didn't take any accountability. He basically put it all on Tyisha. And then with Taisha, she's been speaking out for the last couple of years. She doesn't take any accountability. She basically made Kel seem like the bad guy. Now, somebody is lying and somebody is telling the truth. But like they say, there's always three sides to a story. But the sad part is that these two share children together, and their children literally have to watch this. And I think, if anything, let this play out in court. Taisha, go ahead and get your money. If he's defaming you, go ahead and sue him. She kind of alluded to her comment section on TikTok that she was going to, file a defamation suit against him. So we'll see how that plays out. But let me know what you guys think in the chat.